Well, hello folks, it's Mr. Cast Iron here today, and today we're going to be making a cast iron steak with onions. And so I've got this all together here this morning. We're going to take a cast iron skillet, and I've got a little bit of grease I'm going to use just a regular classic olive oil. I've got my skillet heating up, and we're going to add a little bit of oil. We don't need a whole lot of oil in here to cook these steaks in. So we'll let this heat up a little bit. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some salt, and I use Redmond sea salt. And so we're just going to sprinkle some salt on these steaks here. We've just got some real fatty ribeyes. That's what I love to cook and love to eat. They're the most marbling in them. And so we'll get these dudes salted up here. Now one tip I want to share with you about cooking a good steak is be sure you can salt it, but don't add pepper to it, because pepper will burn. So when you're putting your steak in the cast iron skillet, if it's got pepper on it, it's going to smoke up and it's going to burn, and it's not going to be good for you. So certainly don't do that. If you're going to pepper your steak, just be sure and pepper it later on after you get the steak completely done. Now one thing we're going to do today with these onions, I've got 2 onions already sliced up and ready to go as soon as our steak is done. I've got some sweet cream butter, it's salted butter, and so we're going to add that to our steak too, because there's nothing like a good steak that's cooked with butter. And so we'll get this going, and we'll show you what this looks like here shortly. Okay, since we've got these things together here, we'll go ahead and add our steak. Our cast iron hot enough. And boy, listen to that sizzle. Now that's awesome. That's how you sear a steak. We got that olive oil hot, and we just lay them steaks in there. Now another quick tip I want to share with you too while we're allowing these to sear. I have a fork here. A lot of people won't use a fork on a steak. They'd rather use tongs or whatever. But I use a fork a lot of times, and if you go to turn your steak, just be sure and not poke it in the meat part, because you'll break that sear, and that's what you want. You want to sear the juices into the steak. So if you go to turn this steak, be sure and get your steak by the fat portion to be able to flip your steak over. So we'll let these sear up, and we'll be back with you here just shortly. Okay, well, we've had these steaks in here searing, and you can see that they're cooking down pretty good. Now what I want to do, I've got a little bit of butter here. I'm going to add a little bit of butter to a cast iron skillet to help cook these steaks. I've had these steaks cooking for about 6 minutes, 7 minutes on each side. So we're going to take and, well, that wasn't no good, but anyway. We're going to take and grab this steak and flip it over. Look at that, how that is. Man, that's a seared steak right there. We'll let that butter cook down, sizzle up. Now, what I typically do on a steak is once I get them in the skillet, I like to cook them for about 7 minutes, depending on the thickness. That's going to determine you know, what kind of doneness you want. If you want a medium rare or medium or well done, depends on the thickness. So, but typically a steak like this is about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch thick. I typically do about 6 or 7, sometimes 8 minutes on each side, and then it'll be done. So as soon as these cook down for another 6 or 7 minutes, we'll come back to you and we'll show you what we do with these onions here. Okay, so now we've let these steaks cook for about 7 minutes on each side, and you can see it's got a real good sear. Now this is a little bit darker than I like, but my wife likes them cooked this way, so that's cooked for her. But I just want to turn this over and show you what these look like. Man, how awesome that is. And that butter soaks up into these steaks as they're cooking. See, this is a little bit lighter, so I'm going to get ready and pull these steaks. And what we'll do here, I'm going to let these sit and rest for a little bit. And while these are resting, what I typically do when I have cast iron steak with onions is I take and pull the, let me turn my timer off here, but I've got my skillet here, and I need to deglaze that. And what you want to do, you want to just pour a little bit of water in here in your skillet. Now it's going to steam up like that, but this will help you deglaze your skillet. Okay, this will get all the goodies, all the crumbs and all the meat that has stuck to the cast iron or whatever, or a little bit of butter that may be stuck to the cast iron. But anyway, we just completely deglaze that to where it's smooth again, and we let that water evaporate. And while that's doing that, what I'm going to do is take my onions and just lay these onions. Now I've sliced these onions about a little over 1/4 inch thick. Now when I cut them, I only cut them halfway through, and what that does, that gives me a long piece here for onions to go onto my steak. So I'll just lay them dudes in there. We'll let that all heat back up again. And you can do as many onions as you want. I cut 2 medium onions for me and Teresa. That's plenty for me and her. And then I'm going to add some more butter to this. And what butter does for onions is caramelize. That's how you get caramelized onions. And so I put about 1/2 stick of butter in here. I sliced it into little pats of butter here, and we'll let this cook down and caramelize these onions up for our steak. Okay, as soon as we get these done here, we'll come back to you and show you what this looks like. Okay, so we got our onions all caramelized down. There's still a lot of butter left in the skillet, but that's okay. I've got these onions cooked down the way I want, and I'm gonna just put these on my steak here and just lay those on like that. And I'm gonna get some, put some on Teresa's steak. Man, there's nothing like good old caramelized onions cooked in butter like this, and a good old steak that's cooked in butter and that's got onions with it. If I had some mushrooms, I'd probably have steak and mushrooms today. But anyway, just wanted to share this with you. Here's a good old ribeye. It's a cast iron steak with onions. And so we're going to tie into this now. Let me show you here real quick what this looks like. Mine's going to be probably a medium to medium rare, but that's more medium flavor, medium doneness. Teresa's probably a little bit more well done than mine. But anyway, we're going to cut that up a little bit. Folks, I just can't help it. I'm sorry, but I've got to try this. Look at this. Wow. Folks, it's Mr. Cast Iron over here. Cast iron steak with onions. You guys give this a try. If you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button. We'll have more recipes coming soon. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you.